They actually listened. We finally got news about the new Elite Specs, how they will be changed, so that they finally will really shine with the upcoming expansion. And let me tell you, some of the changes are very unexpected. So be sure to watch the whole video to not miss out any of the cool changes that they tease here in this blog post. As always, special shout out to all my dear supporters that help me keep the lights on. And now without much further ado, let's jump straight in. And as you can notice, I'm very excited about this. Let's start by talking about what this is. This is a blog post about the beta feedback and how they implemented it with the upcoming changes to the Elite Specs. However, it will not mention specific changes to every single Elite Spec. So not sharing all the cooldown changes, all the number changes and stuff like that. For that, you will have to wait until the expansion drops, where we get the full release notes in 13 days. But this will cover the big changes to traits, to specific mechanics, to utilities, professional mechanics, all of that stuff, so that you actually enjoy the class way more and you actually know already what you will get. They will, for example, also, that's actually quite exciting, will update the icons for Antiquary and Luminary so that they are somewhat more fitting, better aligned to their art and their design. That's nice, but in the first major update, not with the release of the expansion. So I guess you have to wait a bit longer, but that's okay. Let's talk and start with Almagam. Almagam is apparently getting some quite big changes, I would say. We will get a new Grandmaster trait, which will, so to say, replacing the one that shared the strain bonuses, which were really strong, which you could, for example, share alacrity and other really strong stuff and boons and more like that, and even quickness, and it was absolutely strong. Now they removed that and still have a lot of value in the strains, but you cannot share them anymore. However, the new trait, new genes it's called, will be used as a skill or as a possibility to share a boon whenever you use a specific morph skill. So any morph skill will give alacrity, and depending on what kind of morph skill you use, you will give another boon as well. That's definitely making Amalgam a very, very worthwhile pick as an offensive supporter, maybe even defensive supporter. But I think that's actually really good playstyle. I liked it a lot because that was before absolutely like intense, that you could share like with a full DPS build, alacrity and quickness and stuff like that. Now it's way more focused towards something that is supportive and makes way more sense that you always are the alacrity support, you cannot provide quickness. I think that's good. That's how it should be. I like those changes. We will see if there are other crazy changes, but I think the numbers changes probably will put it down in damage output, but still very cool spec. Excited to try it. Let's go to Antiquary next. Thief, of course, a lot of changes to it, I would say. They do the split deck trait is now baseline, so that means that you will always get one offensive and one defensive artifact whenever you pilfer. That was suspected. They already told us almost in the live stream when they showcased it. And they also have insane amount of changes, for example, that now give, depending on what artifact you use, you get a unique temporary passive effect. I think that's cool. We will have to see how strong that will be. An example that they give us here is that the guitar grants you access to sneak attacks for a short period of time. It depends how long this short period will be, but that sounds already quite strong. So if all of those temporary effects are somewhat similar like that, ooh, it might be a very, very strong spec in competitive modes as well, if all of them are like that. But for now, I'm a little bit skeptical if that is enough. And they also reworked some of the traits. And that's actually quite exciting because some of them are really, really cool. So for example, that you now can get, whenever you use an artifact, get a recharge reduction of your Squid Swipe. So you can actually play way more using the Squid Swipe, get artifacts, use the artifacts to reset the Squid Swipe, and then it's really some kind of vicious cycle for the enemy. Really cool. I like this kind of playstyle. And they have a lot of like interesting things here. For example, they say Possessive Hoarder is now with different boons. Does that mean it might even give quickness or alacrity? They don't mention it, so I will not suspect it, but it could. Who knows? And they also have like a little bit of adjustment so that the double edge skills, which are quite hard to see if you currently use the one that is the negative one or the good one, you can now see if they are, so to say, different. That's quite nice from the regular skill cooldowns. That's good. That's some quality of life that was direly missing. So overall, I think Antiquary I will have to try if it's really like enough, but in general, it looks like definitely a big improvement and a big step in the right direction. And of course, if you want to see me covering all the stuff when the expansion drops, be sure to subscribe. And if you like this summary of this news, be sure to leave a like. But now let's go to the next one, which will be the Conduit. And this one is the one that I waited the most, to be honest, for getting some feedback there. And I actually think they listened. Yes, they listened. they made this passive of gameplay of Conduit way better. How did they do it? They moved the Cosmic Wisdom to the F3 from the F2 slot. And now will also cast a specific attacks or something like that when you use a legendary assassin skill, depending if you're in the legend assassin form, for example, or when you channel impossible odds. That's something they mention here. I don't know how it works with the other legends, but in general that sounds very interesting because it will now automatically switch depending on the legend you're in, and it will always have an interesting attack with it. So here it fires lesser enchanted daggers, which is quite cool. We will see if all the other legends have also somewhat like interesting skills or if it's just very dull. But in general, I think that sounds very good. And the F2 slot will now be release potential. And that sounds way more what I was always asking for. And then automatically quick depending on the legend that you are in. And it has some kind of really cool aspect that depending on sometimes, for example, have more affinity, it will be stronger effect. What does this release potential do? For example, for the assassin, it will be an attack that sends out increasingly large shockwaves from you that damage and immobilize the enemies. That sounds already very, very cool and very good. I hope the animations are good. I hope the skills are heavily like power crap, that they are really strong and really worth taking. And I think that makes the spec way more interesting because you now focus on dealing damage with assassin stance. And if you go, for example, for healing with the Centaur stance, maybe you provide boons or healing on top of that with the skill. I think that's what we always wanted for Conduit to be, so that you have a power up of the core legends. I think that is looking quite potent. We will have to see how the damage numbers looking or the numbers in general. Maybe we get some boons here. They didn't mention it, so I doubt it, but still in general looks really, really strong. Next up we have the Evoker. Evoker, I think they already mentioned it in an interview with some newspaper article, but in general it's about that the traits were a little bit lackluster and they want to make it more baseline. So for example, some of the traits are baseline. That means that when you apply Regen to an ally, you will always heal them when you have the Otter equipped. That was previously a trait, now it's just baseline when you have the Otter. And that's really good, that makes room for other traits, and some of them are really, really cool, I would already say. So for example, they want to like improve the alacrity or general boon output of support Evoker with even being locked in one element, so which was previously not available. So they want to shuffle some traits around and make some interesting things here. In general, they don't tell us that much in this specific part of the blog post, so we will have to see how it turns out, but I think they actually understand what it will be, so for what we want. So for example, that the utility skills only have the stun break on top of that added when you have the specific element, the familiar of that specific skill, and they want to improve that. So we will see how that looks. They also want to enable auto attack from familiar skills. However, they are not able to do that with the release of the expansion due to a complex technical change, whatever that means. So they will do it at some point, hopefully, but not with the release of the expansion. So we will have to see a little bit, like not that much saying quite nice buffs, but we don't know any numbers, any mechanic changes yet. So we will have to see, but looks quite interesting. I will try Evoker very, very soon when the expansion drops. Then we have Galeshot. Galeshot was already in a very good spot and they actually made it even better, I would say, because they really want to make the arrow gaming wave more like active. You have now skills that generate those arrows with specific traits. You can also have more fun with the projectiles in general because the Grandmaster traits are a little bit more active now, and you have other traits that are improved, and just a lot of improvements to skills, like for example Perfect Storm being able to cast while moving, Mistral becoming a dome. So a lot of interesting things that just add quality of life to already very good spec. I think it's the spec that get the least amount of reworks but got a lot of quality of life, and I think that's a very telling sign that Galeshot was already in a really good spot. So I think it's now in an even better spot, and they tease here that we will also have the new pet encounter that works with the Galeshot. So it will be an avian pet. And also the Cyclone Bow will now remember when you set it to auto attack. That's just another quality of life. In general, I think Galeshot already very good, will be even better. Next up we have Luminary. Luminary was one of the ones that was a little bit dull and lackluster, and they really want to improve it. I'm not sure if they actually succeeded here. We will have to try it out. I think they really want to have the core Guardian virtues now removed and make it even better with some kind of Luminary virtues. They didn't tell us what exactly their power level will be or what they can do, but in general they want to, for example, empower up with the Virtue of Justice, the Hammer, with the Virtue of Resolve, the Staff, and with the Virtue of Courage, the Sword and Shield. We don't know how powered up it is. We will have to see, but that's already an interesting design decision to make it even better than, so to say, just the core virtues. I think that's good, that's what it needed. And then also want to change the Shroud, which is not only called Radiant Shroud anymore, but Radiant Forge, which is more fitting, I guess. Less punishing for using multiple of those weapons so that you are able to not get punished with a high cooldown of the Forge, but still be able to use it a lot more aggressively and maybe proactively and not just dip in, use one attack and dip out. That was a bad gameplay loop and now they improve it. We will have to see. In general, I think it looks like what it should have been in the first place, and I'm not sure if the numbers here are already good enough, but in general, definitely a way better spot than it was before. Next up, we have Paragon. Paragon is, in my opinion, was a spec that lacked some kind of identity other than the pure support spec, and it had some issues with adrenaline generation. Now it gets more adrenaline on those shouts, or however they are called for the Paragon, and that's good. And we will also get more access to damage, just more damage for Paragon, and I think that's what a lot of Paragon enjoyers wanted, to not only be able to support, but also be a nice DPS spec. And I think that is looking quite interesting because they make strengthening stanzas a different slot and making room for new Grandmaster trait, and that will give you a damage bonus. We don't know how high it is, but it will give you a damage bonus based on how many chance, how much motivation you actually have right now. So if you're at tier 10 motivation, you get a very big damage increase, and I think that's really interesting gameplay that makes it very interesting and hopefully way more fun to play than before. And I guess it enables a DPS Paragon, which was not able to be played before. In general, I think the traits need a bit of shuffling and reworking, and I think that's exactly what they did. So I think Paragon, really nice rework, really good changes there. Next up, Ritualist. Ritualist is, I would say, a spec that I was always feeling a little bit like not too excited about because it felt a little bit passive, and now it gets way more active by you being able to use the Rupture skill without destroying your Anguish, without destroying your spirits, and that's quite nice. So they still have the same effect, but they will be staying around the spirits, which is really good, and then we'll just improve some of the things with the teleporting and make them a little bit more interesting, because they now, if you use the 5 skill in Shroud, it will also enable your spirits to do an attack that they didn't have before, instead of just teleporting to you and then lingering there and not doing anything other than auto-attacking. Now it's a little bit more active. I think that's good. We will have to see. It has a protective barrier that destroys enemy, it has a daze, and it has a nice quick flurry of attacks. So I think that's exactly what Ritualist needed. I think it was already in a decent spot. Now it's in a better spot. But yeah, in general, I think Ritualist, we need more info and more testing if that's enough. But in general, I think it looks quite potent already. Next up, Troubadour. And Troubadour is the last one here, and I have to be honest, the most surprising one for me. It was already in a good spot to some extent, and they make a lot of changes, like crazy changes as well. So it becomes more active, your harp, your loot, they become way more potent. You will always have access, for example, to distortion on your harp. That's crazy. So that's already something that was really, really somewhat hard to come by without having the trait, of course, and now it will always be there. Then you have more buffs on the tails, you have more buffs to, in general, all the instruments. Then you also have like a better generation with the traits, so they will get a heavy rework. And probably best, or the biggest change, not necessarily the best, is that you will now be able to grant quickness instead of alacrity. I'm not sure why they did that change, why they didn't do it in the first place, and why they needed better feedback for that. But apparently they decided to say alacrity is something that Mirage and Chronomancer give, and quickness is only on Chronomancer, and now they will give it to Troubadour. I guess that could have been done before as well. I'm not sure why they waited for the beta event for that, but okay. Now we have it, that's good. And we also have like really interesting things. So in general, I think all the traits reworks here, I'm really excited. Troubadour looks way more fun now. And like I said, all of the changes here are somewhat really good, and they listen to us and to our feedback. I'm not sure if it's enough because I don't know the exact numbers, but I think a lot of the changes, specifically Conduit and Troubadour and also like Evoker, I think just the ideas that they provided here in this blog post and what they actually wanted to change is already a very good telling sign that they actually understand what the issues were, and especially the Conduit I'm really happy about. So we will have to see how the power level is, but in general I'm looking very forward. to all of those changes. Let me know your takes on this. If you expected that, if you were hoping for more, whatever, let me know. I'm always excited to hear your opinion on that. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like. If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe. As always, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks again to all my supporters, and I hope to see you all in the next videos.